On this episode of The Open Road, we're reviewing GMC's Yukon, and this is the Denali spec. The 2025 GMC Yukon features a 6.2 litre V8, which is married to a 10-speed automatic transmission. It features 3 rows of seats which will fit the entire family. But the big thing about this truck is the amount of technology that they've managed to pack into it. And some people might say it's too much. I kind of like it, but at $189,000, this is a big offering. One of the things that I find quite impressive about this vehicle in particular is the speed at which you can go from a complete 7-seater and fit the whole family. With just a couple of buttons, you can get the entire cargo space completely flat, and you could put probably another car in here. Moving forward, let's get into the back seat, if you will. Now, before we even get in, there's 2 things I'd like to show you. The first one are these powered steps, which open and close whichever door you open. But even more impressive is the fact that this back door here opens to almost 90 degrees. That makes loading and unloading incredibly easy. Getting into the back is actually really easy. Nice and comfortable. I have got so much leg space. This feels amazing. They have definitely gone for comfort back here because the seats actually do feel like decent back seats, and we have got a huge infotainment system here which can run off HDMI. We've got our own air conditioning and everything like that, and these seats are actually adjustable. So if you want to do this entire row a little bit further forward to give the 3rd row a bit more space, you can do that. Technology is a huge part of this vehicle because we have every driving aid you can possibly think of, from lane keeping assist, just all of the things that you generally want to turn off straight away. And then the technology comes across to creature comforts when you've got heated steering wheels, heated and cooling seats, all sorts of things like that for your convenience and comfort, which it does do very well. One of the points of contention is this screen. A few different people have had comments on this screen. Some people love it, some people hate it. All I would say is that make sure that inside of your massive center console here, you keep a microfiber, because that thing gets really dirty really quickly. One redeeming feature for this incredibly large iPad sitting in the middle of this cabin is the fact that they did realize that most people still like physical buttons, and I definitely fall into that camp. So across here, these are all touchscreen, so for my cooling seats or whatever, but then I also have physical buttons, and they're quite big and they're quite chunky, and they feel like they're going to take a bit of abuse, which is, given what this vehicle is outside of the New Zealand market, very, very good. But you've got to remember, and this is a key part, in New Zealand, this is a very, very premium vehicle. In the States where this is made, this is kind of run in the mill. So we've got to take that into consideration when we're thinking about the mindset around buying a vehicle like this. Surprisingly, however, there is a limited amount of drink space. I find that very surprising for an American car. What we do have in the center console, flip this one up, and we've got 2 normal sized drink holders that'll take a big can, but they don't take a big Stanley cup. And then in front of that, we slide this forward, and we've got more storage with USB and a phone charger. The fit and finish, I'm fairly impressed with, but not completely blown away. Given that this is the Denali, which is supposed to be the top spec one, I think that we've got some nice surfaces that we're touching, sitting on and looking at, but none of it feels like a $200,000 car, which this kind of is. We've got, you know, nice bits and pieces, but it feels like you open that and we've just got what looks like some big 3D printed parts. I don't know about that. Some parts of it just feel like a little bit of a cost saving, which, hey, the economy, I understand it, but if you're paying $200,000 for a vehicle, I want to see where my money went. Now that's all well and good, but this is the open road, so we need to see how it drives on real New Zealand roads. So let's do that. I'll need to change seats. The big takeaway as soon as you get in this car is you realize that it is huge. It is a very, very big car by normal standards, and it also feels bigger than it is, which makes it a little bit intimidating when you start driving it around little tight roads or city centres, or just where you think that you would normally just run straight through in your normal car, you start to second guess it when you're driving this, because it is so big. But between all of the cameras and the mirrors and stuff, after a little while getting to know it and spending a little bit of time driving it around, you do start to gain a bit of confidence to say, hey, actually, I think I've got this. And it becomes, I wouldn't say a chore to drive, but it definitely gets to the point where you feel a lot more comfortable that you're not going to curb the wheel or nudge a car that's parked, something like that, which is, you know, driving this around Takapuna starts to give you some interesting responses. One thing that I always look at when I'm reviewing cars or motorcycles is what are my friends' reactions, and I've had every reaction under the sun, from people who are naysayers because they think it's a waste of money, to people that think that it's just ridiculous because it's so big, all the way through to just utter jealousy because they've spent a significant amount of money on something like a Range Rover, and then we pull up next to them, look down on them, and they start to get feelings of inadequacy, which, I'm not going to lie, the last one I kind of find a little bit funny. But in general, this is something that a lot of people have had opinions on, and the range is completely, like, it's the full spectrum, which is, you know, I guess people have ideas around, is it worth spending $200,000 nearly on a American SUV in New Zealand? Maybe that's the question we need to answer. There are a couple of little things with this car that I think are interesting in terms of a quality control point of view, right? Because I've just spent, for example's sake, $190,000 on a brand new car. There is a piece of trim for the AC which has come loose, so that's just flapping around. There's a noise from somewhere on this side of the cabin, and it sounds like it's a high pressure line of fluid, so that makes me think that it's the cooling unit within the seats. I can hear it quite often when, and it's not even necessarily when those seats are turned on, it's just that I can hear it all the time. That to me kind of says, hey, maybe that there are some quality control things. Even when you're doing tight turns in this, which you will be doing because this thing's huge, at full lock you can hear something rubbing. There's just a few little things about it that make me say, hey, I'm probably going to be making a call within the first week or two back to the dealer to say, hey, I'm not really very happy about these, and what are you going to do about it? So hopefully that does work out. And I guess the only caveat I would say to that is that this does have nearly 8,000 kilometers on it. Other people have used it. It's been used for promotions. Could just be wear and tear, who knows? But these are just little things I've noticed just from driving around here in Takapuna. Why don't we take this big beastie on a nice little motorway cruise? Perhaps we take a little go with the acceleration. Oh, it sounds like a proper V8 too. Which instantly, my first reaction to that is going to be, if you did have a nice exhaust on it because you wanted to hear that engine, well, does that mean that every time you stop at a set of lights, someone's going to hear you restart your car again? And is that dumb? The technology on this thing, whilst I understand why it's there and what it's trying to achieve, it's sort of, sometimes I love it and sometimes I hate it. It's just really hard to know until you've actually spent some seat time. The motorway cruise is pretty much exactly what I expected it to be. My suspension feels a little bit on the soft side, but that's going to make it feel a little bit more of a cloudy ride. But then the other thing that that's going to also do is wallow in the corners, right? Well, we'll see about that. But what's interesting is that I am currently cruising at 90 kilometers an hour, and I'm doing about 1,000 RPM off this 10-speed gearbox, and I'm actually very, very economical. I was surprised to realize today, when I actually realized which of these things on the dash was the fuel gauge, that in the last week I've only done a quarter of a tank of gas, which makes this a lot more economical than I had originally thought. There's a thing with opulence though, right? And this is something that I think this car has started to trigger in some people, is the fact that not only is it a $190,000 car, it looks like a $200,000 car. Now that invokes a lot of different emotions out of people, and it also kind of starts to talk to the kind of people that are going to buy a vehicle like this, right? Like, spoiler alert, I really like this. I think it's really cool, to the point where I've actually had the brains of the operation run the numbers to see how much money we need to make this our company vehicle, right? I like it. I like it a lot. The thing is with a vehicle like this though, is that when you start comparing it to other vehicles in its class, in its price bracket, you start to get some really, really good offers. And things that I think some people, the naysayers to this, will actually find is a bit more agreeable. Perhaps a big Land Cruiser, or I've just seen new photos of the new Patrol. They look great. But one thing I would definitely impress upon you is that if you want to spend the best part of $200,000 on a vehicle, make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. I've had conversations with people that have had very expensive vehicles, and they don't do it because they want the vehicle because they enjoy it for themselves. They do it because of the message that driving that vehicle sends. And the irony being is that most of these things are on finance and they don't actually own them anyway, but they want you to think that they do. Personally, I don't give a flying if someone thinks I have money or not. That makes no difference to me. That's not where my values lie. The thing for me is that this will be able to do a lot of different things for us in a lot of different ways, while still being cool, while still representing something that aligns with our values, right? I've always loved the big American trucks. I love my Commodore. This is kind of both of those, right? Because we've got the 7 seats, we've got 5 seats if we want them because we want to use the boot space, but it's also a big American truck, so that's cool, and it has every mod con you can possibly think of. So when you start to add all of those things up, this to me becomes a very compelling package for me and my team, and a vehicle that stands out with our signage on it, and then it says to people, hey, who are these guys? Let's investigate. Because the thing for my point of view is that we want people to know who we are and what we do, right? That's the same with any publication. So yeah, if you see one of these rolling around with Empire on the side of it, we did it. If you're watching this video from outside of New Zealand, you may not appreciate how third world a lot of our roads are. Now, the thing that I've really learned to appreciate about this vehicle in particular is the fact that whilst I was saying that when we're on the motorway or going around small townships or whatever it is, this feels big and wallowy, which is completely expected on a vehicle this heavy and this big, right? We accept that. We know it's a compromise that we have to make. The thing that impressed the hell out of me with this vehicle is the way that it goes around corners. When you add up all of the technology involved in this car, between it reading your steering inputs and reading the geometry and the gyros and all sorts of bits and pieces, just magic and rubber bands that make this vehicle, like I just went around that corner a little bit too fast and there's no body roll. There's none, absolutely no body roll. That to me says, hey, they've actually done something really clever with the way that the suspension works, because as soon as I'm back on a straight, I feel like I'm floating on a cloud. Now, that to me shows that this vehicle is going to be very comfortable on a long road trip. Now, that's all well and good, except you do start to get to the point when you start adding this much technology into a vehicle, you start to get to the point where, in my opinion, it can become invasive. Now, what I mean by that is if you're driving through a suburban street and there's cars parked on the side of the road and you have to cross the center line, it starts thinking that you're doing something really dumb and it starts trying to save you when you're not actually in trouble. It's probably not a surprise to any of you guys that I'm not the biggest fan of intrusive technology. This is right on the borderline of intrusive, but probably helping, right? Because this thing is so big and you don't know where all the corners are because you don't want to bump off cars and curbs and things of that nature. So you just kind of have to feel your way through it. Often what we're finding with this is that there are moments where For example, if you're backing up and you're using the parking system to help you park the car, it'll actually brake for you before you hit something. Is that overly invasive, or does that save you an insurance claim? And that's where the conversation has to sit now, because you have to decide, do you want to save your insurance excess, or are you okay with the car having a go at some stuff? Like even these stalks, right? These indicator stalks, because we've got our drive, neutral, reverse and park on the right stalk, what that then means, of course, is that everything else is on the other stalk. So we've got our indicators, we've got our front and rear washers. There's a lot going on in this one stalk, and needless to say, a lot of the ways of interacting with those are not what you would commonly think. Also, I've got one touch that'll close that sunroof shade, which is quite good. Now I can slide that back, I can tilt it up, all of it a push of a button just up here. You can even adjust, you can do the seats from up here, and you can adjust how much the tailgate opens when you remote open it. The amount of stuff that this does is impressive. Well team, that's been the GMC Yukon Denali. Now, this is one of those vehicles where at the end of the video, I sit here and ask myself, is this a vehicle I would own? The short answer is yes. The long answer is a little bit more complicated than that, because there are a few variables to take into account. It's a very, very expensive vehicle. Now, when you drive a vehicle that's worth around $200,000 in New Zealand, people look at you different. Some people like that, some people don't. I would be in the latter camp, where I actually don't want people to look at me and go, hey, look at this guy driving around in this flash car. I just like the car. The other thing that you have to contend with this vehicle in particular, is the fact that all of the electronic aids are just on that borderline of too intrusive. I don't like intrusive aids in a car, but with a vehicle like this, they do actually come in handy. So that's the trade-off, that's my reasoning. And I would still buy one of these. I think that they are absolutely brilliant. I just have a few caveats to that. Cheers for watching. I'm going to enjoy my nice beer here at the Riverhead. I'm just going to ask you one more thing. Watch this. Thanks for watching our latest video. Please, if you enjoyed it, like and subscribe. There'll be a lot more coming. And I also just wanted to remind you guys, tickets for the giveaway bike are live. They are on sale, just a $20 ticket. You could win an amazing bike built by Kelvin of Hungry Wolf Motorcycles, supported by so many people. Top of which is Yamaha New Zealand, because they gave us all the parts we needed to rebuild that engine right from the ground up. So someone is getting a hell of a cool bike. Don't forget, we've got merch available as well, so get your ticket, get in the draw, and good luck.